We are back with Dentistry In-Depth and Interactive. Dr. Agatha Bis, Dr. Paul Homoly from the great US of A.
Yes.
And yes. And it's very interesting today. We thought on this he said, she said segment, we've got two brilliant doctors with us that have got different perspectives on how to get to probably a common goal. And in our office, especially right now, coming out of the pandemic, how do we recognize our people? How do we reward our people? Are there bonus structures that were in place that are going to hold water and weight going into the future? And what's the best way to recognize the strengths within our organization, and how do we celebrate that? And I know there could be two different perspectives. What I saw pre-COVID a lot was what we've heard of is that BAM, that bare ass minimum. We've got a goal to meet, you meet that, and then the team shares equally in those profits. It's kind of like a profit share. Right. There's other perspectives that allow people to get ownership within the profits of the procedures. Are you booking more comprehensive dentistry? I'm going to bonus you on a percentage of that. So those are things I would typically see. I know that Agatha has some disagreeing thoughts with how those play out in the dental world. And Paul, it's not that different in America. When you talk about bonuses, when you talk about recognizing team, what's your best advice, and then what are you seeing that people are appreciating the most and it's moving practices forward?
Well, in my opinion, the best way to recognize your team, the best way to reward your team is by becoming a great leader. And let's I'm doing a little sidebar here, I know, but if we look at reward and recognition processes strictly as well, you guys do this, then I'll do that kind of thing. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying I think there's a higher bar that right. It's a better first question. A good question is, how do we reward our team? A better question is, how do we become better leaders? Because I believe that one of the best rewards you can give an employee is to create a work environment to where you're helping them become the best versions of themselves. It's if they can be compensated real well, recognized real well, but if they don't like you, if they don't like the work they're doing, if the team is toxic, if there's all this going on, then money only solves so much of that. So my sense, the first question to ask in terms of pursuing the intended outcome. I mean, what is the outcome? I mean, Agatha, this is something we can talk. What is the outcome that we're looking to find with rewards and recognition, right? From my point of view, the outcome we're looking for is complete care for patients. What's your take on that?
Well, I'm kind of curious to hear, maybe Mark, because you're involved in a lot of dental offices, before I kind of give you my opinion, what is the motivation? Like, because this is a carrot stick kind of model of reward, right? Like I'll give you money if you do this. So it's if then. And do you see it actually working in some offices? I'm wondering if the reward system does work in certain situations.
Well, it's interesting because when you look at an office, there's a lot of people that feel by default of tenure that deserves a raise or an increase. I did my 3 months, doc. Where's my raise? I've been here for 5 years. I hadn't had a raise, doc. Where's my raise? And when it's approached that way, I often hear the reply of, what have you done for me lately? I'm paying you a salary to do what you are doing already, but what have you done above and beyond that? So that's sometimes where that sticking point starts to occur. And then I have seen in a really strong culture that has an ownership mentality, which only comes from a great leader, to Paul's point, is where these BAM theories, or whatever you want to frame them as, they actually do work because they're taking ownership of the growth of the clinic and they're celebrating as owners. So that's where I've seen it work. I don't see it work when people think they should get an increase or a raise just because I've been here for a certain period of time.
So in those situations, are they also contributing back to the practice when the practice is not producing? Like, for example, in the last couple of months, would they then kick back and contribute to the fixed costs that are coming out of the account?
Yeah, I so knew you were going there, and that's the
Yeah.
interesting spot, right? And that's the part where dentists have to reconcile, where do I draw the line? Where does this work in my office? And how do I continue to move the needle in a positive direction?
Well, so in reality, it's really not an ownership situation. It's when things are good, I'll give you money. And when things are bad, I am going to take care of everything when things hit the fan. And when things are great, then you get a reward. But
yeah, is it that too? But there's also, Agatha, there's best practice. So we all go through slumps in any industry. Mm-hmm. And if people are still coming to bat the whole time, not just thinking about reward, but keeping the boat afloat, keeping the momentum, keeping the ship going forward, we are going to get to, for lack of a better word, greener pastures. And when that happens, a strong culture team is going to be there for you when the times are tough. And then they're going to celebrate when times get strong. The same as the dentist would celebrate in having more of his own revenue when times are good.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Paul, I'm wondering if you agree with me or not. If I say to you, okay, you're in my office, you work in my office, and I have a lot of heavy furniture I need to move, right? And I say to you, Paul or Mark, can I get you to help me move this furniture? And what are the odds that you're going to come and help me? If we have a good relationship, if we have a strong culture, if I'm a good leader, chances are, even if you are not inclined or interested in moving furniture, you'll probably come and help me. Now, what if I say to you now, I will give you $10 if you help me move some of my furniture? Now think about that. What would happen if I said, come and lift this really, really heavy, awkward furniture? Would your motivation go up with the $10? Would you say, hey, I get to help Agatha, plus I get $10. That's just way better than helping. No way, because it turns out that when I'm a big fan of Dan Ariely, and he does a lot of these experiments. And when you do that, the motivation actually goes down because people say, this is work, and I don't want to do this for $10. Give me $500, and now we can talk. So when we motivate people with money, the motivation actually goes down. And study after study after study, and I mean, I have a few in my head that I can recall from just watching some of his videos, it says the same thing. If they're thinking they're doing it for money, they start to ask themselves, is it really worth it? And all of a sudden, the calculation changes and motivation goes down because it's money plus motivation equals less motivation.
So she said, what does he have to say about it?
Well, you know, this goes to the work on what's your love languages. I don't know if you've read that book on love languages. When I was going through my domestic quarrels, I was reading all these self-help books on relationships. I actually did a video interview with John Gray, author of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus.
Yeah, great.
I did all that. Well, there's a really good book out there called Languages of Love.
Okay.
And I don't know if I can name them all, but here's the book basically boils this down to how people receive love in different ways. They can receive it in services. Honey, I'll take out the garbage for you. Mm-hmm. They can receive it in gifts. Here, honey, here is a diamond bracelet. They can hear it in words of appreciation. Boy, honey, you did a great job. Or what's the last one? But the point where I'm getting, there's also a language of leadership. There's a way that by offering the money, that's a reward. That's the gift. That's like giving your wife, who doesn't want a new car, but she wants you to be home on the weekends and play with the kids. There's no amount of new cars you can give her that will make her feel connected to you in the relationship. So the question of, will you help me move this furniture, really needs to be set up prior to asking this person to help you move the furniture. If you know their love language, right? If you know their love language or their leadership language, then you know there's some people. I had dental assistants, to tell you the truth. They were good workers. I loved them. I did. But I can think of two that were in just bad domestic situations. Husbands were deadbeats. They had children too early. They didn't have, they had some tough breaks. And I tell you what, $50 to them made a big deal. It's a big deal to them. But I've had others where $50 is, well, okay, but move your own damn furniture.
Yeah.
What if $50 is now taken away because of increased expenses or COVID or
Absolutely.
now when you take it away, what happens to their motivation to perform at the same level as they did before with these rewards?
Right. You know, it so much of this boils down to what's called situational leadership. Ken Blanchard wrote a lot about this years ago. You know, the situational leadership aspect of things is, you know, what is what is the motive for the reward? If you take it, it's like it's the old what do they call it? The Skinner box studies done where the chickens were pecking at the disc and they would get the kernel of corn. It's called scheduled and unscheduled reinforcement. As long as the chicken would peck on the little target, you'd get a corn. And after a while, peck corn, peck corn, peck corn. And after a while, you stop pecking the ding, right? Right? Mm-hmm. The chickens that peck the disc most is sometimes they peck it, they wouldn't get a piece. And other times they peck it, they get it. So there's unscheduled reinforcement schedule. That's what makes fishermen crazy, right? If you caught a fish every time you threw your line in the water, after a while, you'd get bored of fishing. You would. If you sunk every putt you made, you'd get bored putting. So the way I handled reward and recognition is I handled it on the hiring end. That is, I looked for people who resonated to a transformative experience with me and who responded to unscheduled reinforcement. So let's say I was in a long, difficult surgery with my patients, 2.5, 3 hours. We had a nurse anesthetist, patients nasty. Things kind of went south, then we recovered. Good outcome, but we're beat and we're tired, right? We're beat and we're tired. So then after the procedure, after lunch, I walk up to Suzette. Suzette's tired. She's scrubbing instruments in the sterilization area. And I take a $50 bill and stuff it into her pocket and say, thanks, Suzette. Unscheduled reinforcement worked extremely well for me. And sometimes people would prefer to have the time off instead of the money. So there again, so the situational leadership aspect of it, you need to kind of match the reward to the leadership language or the love language of the recipient. Now, I get it. That requires a higher level of self-awareness and emotional intelligence on part of the leader. And that's a whole nother discussion.
So what you're kind of like referring to is a bonus that is there based on every time you do something. If you take it away, it becomes an issue. But what if you, which is what you're talking about, when you reward, right, when it's not expected, you know, you've been awesome. I know you've had a rough week or month or a year. Here's a day at the spa, or here's a day off with pay, or here's $50 to fix your car, or $500 to fix your car. Those are the things that are not bonuses. Those are the things that you're basically saying, listen, I know this is what's going on in your life. You've been awesome with me all along. Here's something to help you get through whatever you're going through. I want to say, I appreciate you. That's a very big difference between that and saying, I'm going to give you 20% of the profit if we go above and beyond a certain cutoff.
So how do you measure that? How do you measure that if I'm a doctor and I'm kind of adjudicating my team? I'm trying to figure out, you know, it's almost like a tennis match. When do I step in? When's the right time to initiate these type of bonuses and rewards? There's got to be almost a system as much as it is matching values in the office.
Oh, yeah.
Systems grow. So what's the system? So
number one, I am completely against any kind of a bonus structure that is an equation. So if this, then that, that's not my thing. So for me, that's kind of like an extrinsic. So there's two types of motivation, right? Extrinsic, if you do this, then I will do that. And then there's intrinsic, where you are self-motivated to do something for whatever reason, right? So extrinsic motivation is exhausting because it's like the carrot and stick. I have to constantly keep rewarding, constantly keep reinforcing this person so that if something happens, I do something else. Intrinsic comes from a relationship value-based leadership position where people are, first of all, trained on how to accomplish something. The message is sent to them saying, this is what we need to do to grow. And every now and then trickling in a different type of reward. I'm not about money. I don't just give money, I give something. So I will call and fix somebody's car for them if it's being repaired. I will, you know, give them an unexpected, here's a reservation for you and your spouse to get a, you know, a 2 days in the spa or a day in a hotel with fully paid dinner, wine, all the stuff. So because they've been amazing to me, but it's sporadic, it's unexpected, and it's bigger than they would have ever envisioned if I were just to say, hey, if you do this, then I will do that.
You get this. So Paul, let me ask you a question. I've seen this happen. I'm curious to hear what your response is. New doc takes over. There's a completely different expectation for how they've been treated in the past, whether they ended up from the she said perspective of what we're talking about, or they end up from, oh, we got a bonus on this, or we got a raise every 6 months. How do you train that team, or how better do you get that doctor to adapt to a new culture? What's your advice? How do you follow through with that?
Well, you know, the first question is the new doctor. Is this doctor new to the practice of dentistry, or is this doctor, you know, with 15 years and just new to the practice? Let's take the new doctor, the young graduate. Okay, the young graduate dentist is an accident waiting to happen relative to leadership. They just don't get it. You know, the new dentists, number one, they're a new dentist. Number two, they may be a new parent. Number three, they may be a new spouse. This might be their first new full-time job, right? But the one role they're not aware of, their new role they're not aware of, is their new role of leader. You see, it's leadership that is ultimately the ultimate career derailer. It isn't clinical skills. Clinical skills are easy and cheap to acquire. Right, Agatha, there's so much continuing education out there. You really have to want not to be educated, right? Everything's online. The processes are better. There's better science. But where do young dentists go to learn that emotional intelligence, when to reward? How do young dentists learn how to talk to team members in a conflict situation? How do they, most importantly, continue to develop their own personal leadership skills? I frankly think that the root of all staff problems starts with the dentist. I really believe that.
I agree.
Right? Yeah. And the dentist will say, well, this has been a troublemaker all along. Well, who hired her? Right?
Or who kept her? Yeah.
And who
him or her.
Him or her, yeah. Who kept him or her, right?
Yeah.
You did. And, you know, the process of dentistry is consuming. I mean, come on, I did it for 20 years. And you walk in the front door and bam, it hits you right off the bat. You got 3 patients in the chair and this one's puking in the corner. And you got 2 staff members are fighting and your head hurts from last night's vodka. And you put the mask on, you sit in the chair, and the next thing you know, it's 4:30 in the afternoon. Yeah. You don't have time or energy to lead. You really don't. And what happens over time, it gets to be a habit that unless the dentist is grinding, the dentist will abdicate leadership responsibilities about how to buy equipment or how to renew a lease, or, you know, other people make those decisions. But what was interesting is that when COVID-19 hit, all the grinding stopped, right? Mm-hmm. All the grinding stopped. So the question is, what's the role of a dentist when he's not, or when she's not fixing teeth? What's the role of the dentist when she's not fixing teeth? And the role has always been the same. It's the role of leadership. But when we stopped fixing teeth, the camouflage of fixing teeth went away. And now the leadership deficiencies really stick out. How many dental practices, how many dentists completely freaked out on this stuff? Just freaked out on it.
Yeah.
And how did that make the staff feel? Like there's a negative reward when your doctor freaks out. The dentists who have led well, the ones who have led well during the crisis, always led well. It became more apparent. I would have doctors who would call me and say, hey, we've got nothing to do. Tell me about your online program. Hell, now they're doing Zoom calls at 7:30 in the morning. They're doing all this stuff. They're continuously leading. So for me, every staff problem ultimately ends up on the doctor's lap. And the big issue with dentists that I've run into, that I've personally worked with, is they play the blame game. Oh, the hygienist is too snooty, or the front desk girl, they're just lazy, or my staff never can get things right. They don't look in the mirror. And when you really boil it down, I mean, think about this, Agatha. Let's say you go to the Ontario Dental Society meeting or the Chicago Midwinter meeting. You go to the big meetings, and let's say it's 3 days. You got general sessions and 40 different breakout sessions. Here's my question to you, Agatha. How many of those sessions are on leadership?
Probably none.
A whole lot of zero, exactly.
A big zero, big zero. Yeah. And yet we cry and complain because staff are non-compliant, we're behind on our taxes, we're broke. All those things are subsets of poor or absent leadership in the process. So, the school of thought that I come from is very similar to where you come from, Agatha. I did subscribe to one of those transactional models of reinforcement.
I did too.
Here's our monthly goal. And everything over that monthly goal, I'm going to distribute 10% of what's over that monthly goal equally to all the team members. Okay. Yeah. So now
fired, right?
Oh, absolutely. So now let's say there's 25 working days, right? And we're up to day 20 and we're, $15,000 short. And all the staff members are kind of licking their chops and they're thinking, we got to kick some ass here. So what do they start doing? They start overselling. They start applying sales pressure, or they start taking shortcuts to get the next patient in. What happens is the quality of service diminishes. I personally believe that transactional systems probably work pretty well in non-specific procedures. Like, for example, selling cars, right? Yeah. Or stacking up bags of sand, or things that don't have humanistic and intrinsic damage done to people. I'm a patient at the Mayo Clinic here in Scottsdale. Nobody at the Mayo Clinic is on a pay-for-procedure basis. They're all salaried. And I tell you, you walk into the Mayo Clinic and it is a different experience altogether. And that's the experience I want to have with my team. Now, do I have team members who will not thrive under that transformative type of leadership? Absolutely, yes. The dental office is not a safe haven for the uninspired.
True.
And holding on to these people, trying to get them to own the mission. Here's our vision. Let's go for it. Yippee-yay, right? Kumbaya. Hell no. They're thinking about those $300 pair of shoes they want to buy. They don't give a shit about what's going on in the dental office. Yeah. They're too immature.
So when do you know, Paul, when to cut that out? Because that again comes back to culture and leadership. If you said before, who's the person who hired this person, who's the person who didn't fire,
right.
At which stage do you take inventory over the people that are working for you and you're all trying to move towards this common goal? At which stage do you hit the reset button?
Well,
mind you, with COVID.
Okay. Virus that kills and shuts down businesses.
Yeah. Well, I'm not up to speed with all the new human resource laws, but back in the olden days when I was in practice, what we did is we hired everybody on a 90-day period. Okay.
Right.
It was a temporary hire in 90 days. hell, you're going to know in 90 days if they're worth it. You're going to know that.
Yeah, we have
right?
the same thing. Yeah.
Right. And one of the things that I would do, one of the truest tests that I would do is I would put the employee in a challenging work situation. I have a dental assistant with minimal experience, right? And after she gets the hang of the clinic and she knows where all the parts and pieces are, I'd sit her next to me in a long, difficult implant procedure. I'd have my experienced assistant sitting right over their shoulder. And we'd put a little heat on her. And we would see, would she try to flee or would she try to excel?
Yeah.
Those employees, when challenged, when their intention is to succeed, when challenged, they'll rise to the occasion. Employees who don't intend to succeed, when challenged, they'll hide, they'll blame. And you can find that out in 90 days. Yeah. And that's what we would do. So Mark, I didn't hold on to people. If they were losers, not losers, that's okay.
They just didn't fit. They were called they were the wrong fit, not the right fit.
They were losers.
Losers, damn it.
Get out.
Here's your loser t-shirt. Goodbye.
Here's your loser. Get the hell out of my dental office. No. We would, at the end of 90 days, if it didn't work, hey guys, it doesn't work. Let's just move on. And what happened is that the employees who were into a transformative style, those that would roll with the punches, those would seek challenging work assignments. When we got rid of the weaker ones, they rejoiced.
Yes.
They rejoiced.
It's like elevation. You elevate everybody by that. You strengthen the team by cutting out the weakness. It's like a disease almost.
Yeah.
You don't leave it on your arm to grow and fester. You cut it off.
Yeah, but how many dentists like firing an employee? Here's the answer. Nobody likes that. And so, anyway, you got me going now. You got me going on this.
We've got a couple of topics on the go here. You got a bonus round of leadership and how to compensate your team at a higher level. She said, what do you want to end with today?
Well, I just want to kind of touch on a couple of things that you said, Paul, because it totally nails this topic down. I feel like one of the things I saw when I did years and years ago implement a bonus structure for a brief time, and it did backfire because what I was seeing was people, if we were having a good month, they were very motivated to keep selling because they could see the numbers go up. But when you could see the month wasn't going well, they actually shut down, or when they did get a case accepted, they would move it to the following month. They wouldn't book it when we had a
move it out. Defer.
They already knew this month wasn't going to bonus, so why not push it somewhere else? So it became a game, and it got to a point where I could see one person being the leader of this pack that was like motivating this behavior, and that's when I let her go nicely and shut it all down. But one of the things you said that kind of ties it all together is you said that a lot of most dentists are so busy, and we're so busy, grind, busy before COVID, and we don't have time. Dentistry leadership is parenting. If you, by the time your kid turns 17 and they're on drugs or doing stupid shit, and you when they were 2 or 3 or 7 said, I don't have time to sit down with you, right? I go backwards. So
you're bad.
Happening in your office, the cause of it already happened. So saying you don't have time to spend time with your people, and I'm not talking about hours, I'm talking about little bits a day. That's what develops humans. That's what grows humans. That's what develops kids to be proper adults, well-raised adults. That's what takes your team and develops a crazy great team. And I'll tell you, I don't know when the day happened when my hygienists, my team had my back. There was a switch when I hired somebody from the time they didn't know me to a time when they would do anything for me. It happened gradually. It happened slowly. Couldn't tell you when, but they have my back. Anytime anything happens, we're a team. We're unified because of these little tiny time investments, conversations, training, understanding what I'm after, what we're doing as a team, and how I can help you grow in this whole equation of win, 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 win. Because for me to win, for our patients to win, for the business to win. You have to win. So what do you need? It comes down to what each person needs. Some people need more recognition. Some people need just to be told they did a good job. Other people need to feel like you have their back. Other people need maybe a day off, or, you know, whatever it is that they need, make them feel good, but you don't do it as an equation. It's not if this, then that. It's sporadic, and let me help you grow into the human that you want to be, not the one I want you to be.
Yeah, and you know, Agatha, I really love what you're saying, that whole parenting comparison. And I think where dentistry gets a little sideways here is that we'll have companies that provide key performance indicators to dentists. There's several companies that do that. Now, I want to be quick to say, I like them all. Okay, this is not a slam against that industry. But what happens with key performance indicators, we start counting all the grains of sand, and we lose what I call touch. And the mistaken belief is that, oh, you can use these key performance indicators to create these transactional motivational models.
Yeah.
And you get enough data analysis companies all saying the same thing. You get it in your inbox, you get it in the conference table clinics or the booths. You see all of this KPI. You create a bonus system. After a while, you believe that's the way it's got to be. It's like when the dental implant companies realized that they needed to make full-size scale models of dental implants to show patients. That was the big rage. So all the dental implant companies had these big plastic mandibles and big implants. So here you got this little old lady, she's sitting in a chair and say, here, we're going to jam this one in your gums. Yeah, you know, after a while, dentists begin to believe where the trade industry wants us to go, right? Because they got to eat too. I'm not against that. Some early research, I think it was the Pride Institute that did this research. This goes back years. And they asked many team members, I forget the study, but they asked, what are like the top 3 things that you're looking for in your work environment? Number one by just a huge margin was to work in a nurturing work community. That is the sense of community in the practice. And everything that you said, Agatha, about, okay, let's push this big case to the next month, that becomes sort of the team is conspiring behind the dentist's back. That's toxicity. That isn't community. So again, I'll go back to dentists who are listening to this that want the ultimate solution to their leadership problems. Here's my answer: look in the mirror.
The mirror, exactly.
That's where it starts. And I would love for this he said, she said thing for us to, you know, let's land a little bit. What are the leadership competencies that dentists can work on? How do you know how well you're leading? What are benchmarks? How do you develop a learning agility that will allow you to learn from your experiences? How do you reflect on things that went right? People will always say, well, why me when things go wrong? Well, who says why me when things go right? Go right,
Yeah.
right? So that would be some fun going forward.
No, I think that's
what you're talking about is that leadership can be taught, just like anything else can be taught, really. I can't be taught to grow taller, but I can be taught to be a better leader.
Well, you don't digress. You guys continue to progress. And I think that's what's really neat about what we're doing here. And I appreciate the insight and the input from both Dr. Agatha Bis, Dr. Paul Homoly. This is He Said, She Said. Today you got a little bit more than what we bargained for on just bonuses. You got a touch on how to become a better leader, which at the end of the day, to Paul's point, that's what creates strong work environments. That's what creates strong relationships in your team. And that's how we all grow together. I'm Mark Gaylor. This is Dentistry In-Depth, Interactive, UBB Dental Academy. We'll see you next time.